I work the night shift for the sheriff's department in Bergen County, and most of the time the nights bleed into each other without anything remarkable happening, only the usual drunken fights or petty thefts or an occasional car that refuses to pull over. But that night something different came across the radio. A single word that carries more weight than gunshots or sirens. A scream. Someone reported a scream so sharp, so raw, that the neighbor thought it might have been the last sound a person ever made. And my heart stuttered as I acknowledged the call, because a scream like that rarely ends with something clean. The house was buried in shadows when I pulled up. Not a light on inside, though. A blue Toyota minivan sat in the driveway, like a forgotten sentinel. Something about that car unsettled me, a little too ordinary, a little too quiet. I stepped out into the chill and felt the weight of the night pressing against me, my boots crunching softly against gravel as I approached. The door I knocked hard once, twice, 3 times, no answer. No sound, just the thick silence that made the world feel hollow. The neighbor had seen my cruiser and walked over, his face pale, his words tumbling out quick. He was the one who had called. He swore he heard it. A blood-curdling scream tearing through the walls of that house, and he knew the woman inside lived alone, except for the boyfriend who sometimes stayed over, and the thought hung between us like a noose. What if he was there? Now what if the scream was hers? What if it was too late? I tried the doorknob locked. I circled the house, testing each window, every single one sealed tight, except for one in the back, slid open just enough for a body to slip through, and that was enough to make my pulse crawl in my throat. I called for backup, my voice calm on the radio, though my hands were damp. Then I slid inside the yawning window and dropped into the kitchen. The air was wrong, heavy with a metallic tang that clung to my tongue as if the walls themselves had bled. I flicked on the light, bright white glare burning through the shadows, because, contrary to what movies say, cops do not search in the dark. We want to see everything, every corner, every movement. I called, her name telling her it was the police, telling her she was safe, but the silence that came back was louder than any scream. The first floor gave me nothing. Kitchen, clear living room, empty hallways stretching like veins through a corpse. I moved fast, but each step dragged like I was wading into deep water. The only place left was upstairs, and I hated that more than I can explain. Stairs are traps, they make you a target. I unlocked the front door first. Backup would need a way in. Then I climbed. Each carpeted step, the sound muffled, but to me each one boomed like a drumbeat announcing my presence. At the top 4 doors waited mouths that could swallow me whole. I flicked on the hall light, brightening the narrow space. Then I heard it a creak, a sound of weight shifting behind one door. I swallowed hard, called out again, voice sharp, commanding. I opened it slowly, a bedroom, dim but lit enough by the hallway glow. My eyes fixed on the bed and the figure beneath the covers. A woman lay there, her back turned, hair spilling across the pillow. She looked peaceful too. Peaceful. I stepped closer and my stomach clenched. The sheets were stained, soaked, dark, and spreading. I pulled the covers back and the world snapped sharp. She was torn open. 6 deep wounds stabbed again and again, and yet somehow she was still breathing, shallow, rattling breaths, fighting against the dark. My hand shook as I grabbed my radio, requesting immediate medical and backup, my words fast, tight, clipped. But then, something crashed through my thoughts, the creak, that sound before. If she was here, broken in her bed, who made that sound? I spun the room, stretching taller around me, my eyes on the closet door. Gun raised, my breath stuttering. I pressed my hand to the knob, counted 1, 2, 3, 5 heartbeats, then yanked it open. The space inside yawned empty, the smell of cedar and mothballs and nothing else. My relief came too quick, too shallow, because then a thought rooted in my head like rot. What about under the bed? I dropped to my knees, the carpet scratching my palms. I lifted the bed skirt and froze. Eyes stared back at me, cold, unblinking face hidden behind a black mask. Only the gleam of teeth caught in the thin light. His body folded like a spider, waiting beneath the frame, a knife clutched tight in one hand. The blade glinting inches from my face. I screamed a sound I barely recognized, my gun leveled at him. My voice breaking as I ordered him to show me his hands. Slowly, so slowly, he raised them like he had rehearsed this 1,000 times, like this moment was not fear for him but satisfaction. I forced him out from under the bed, his body unfolding long and strange. He stood in the corner, hands high, while I held my weapon steady, my heart slamming against my ribs. Backup was minutes away, but minutes felt like centuries in that room with him. standing silent, his eyes never leaving mine. I did not dare touch him, did not dare try to cuff him, not with that knife still possibly hidden on him, not while the woman's blood still seeped through the sheets beside us. Finally, voices echoed up the stairs, my backup arriving, my lungs flooding with air. For the first time I called out, told them to come up. Only then, with two more officers flanking me, did I place him in cuffs. His body limp, compliant, like he had been waiting for this moment, as though arrest was not defeat, but part of the plan. The ambulance came. They took her away, fragile but alive, and the man was shoved into the back of a cruiser, still silent, his mask still half covering his face, his eyes never leaving me, not once. Later we learned it was her boyfriend, the betrayal, the argument, the rage that drove the knife into her chest. But none of that mattered. As much as what he said to me just before the car door closed. He leaned close, whispered so soft I almost thought I imagined it. She wasn't the one screaming. Those words have eaten me alive since that night, because I believed the neighbor. I heard the truth in his fear. He knew the sound came from inside that house, but if it wasn't her, if it wasn't the woman bleeding in her bed, then who screamed, and where is she now? Because sometimes late at night when I am driving alone, I hear it again, that same scream echoing through my mind, tearing through the silence, and I wonder if she is still screaming somewhere, waiting for someone else to climb through another open window. The call came just after 1 in the morning, a landlord's voice on the radio, tight with irritation, but also trembling a little. He said one of his tenants was causing trouble, flooding his unit, turning on every faucet in the apartment and refusing to answer the door. At first it sounded routine. Welfare checks like this happen more than people think. Sometimes it is just someone drunk. Sometimes it is someone forgetting they left a sink running. But the way he said it, the urgency in his tone, planted something uneasy in me. So my partner and I rolled out into the night. The building stood pale and quiet against the darkness, an old apartment block with cracked bricks and tired windows. But every tenant stood outside, scattered in the grass, in their pajamas, staring up at the second floor, water trickling down the siding like the place was bleeding from its own skin. The landlord met us, face pale under the yellow streetlight. He started ranting about the tenant, about how he was strange, about how he had been acting off for weeks, but his rant cracked around the edges, his voice carrying not just anger but fear. The name was Adam, a man in his 30s living alone, and when we climbed the stairs, the sound hit us, the gushing roar of running water spilling out from under the door, soaking into the carpet, streaming down each step like veins of the building had burst. We pounded on the door, called his name. No answer, only the endless rush of water. So finally we forced the lock, splintered the wood, and pushed our way inside. The apartment was drowning, water spraying from every faucet, every pipe, even a hose dragged in through a window, snaking across the floor, spewing more into the chaos. The floor slick under my boots, the wallpaper sagging heavy with moisture, and in the middle of it stood Adam, frozen, trembling, his eyes wild and too wide, his body shaking like each breath might snap him in two. I called to him, soft at first, then sharper. "Are you all right? What happened?" But he did not move, not even a blink, until my partner waded further in, moving toward the bathroom to shut off the source. And then Adam whispered, his voice thin, cracking over the roar. "They are in the walls." At first I thought I misheard, but he said it again, louder, his lips trembling, his teeth clacking against each other as though the words themselves froze him. "There are people in the walls." He cried it like a prayer, like a confession, and my stomach dropped. Because sometimes madness is contagious. Sometimes it crawls under your skin just from hearing it. And in that moment, with the water rushing around us, I thought I heard it too. Scratching faint behind the plaster, a sound like nails dragging. Slow, my partner reached the bathroom, started twisting off valves, killing the flood, then stepped into the bedroom and stopped, his voice sharp, calling me over. I left Adam where he stood shaking, whispering the words over and over like a broken record, and I joined my partner in the room. The light flicked on, buzzing against the damp, and there on the far wall I saw it. A faint line like someone had taken a blade and traced a rectangle into the plaster, a hidden outline of a door where no door should be. We both froze, the sound of water still echoing through the air and Adam still crying behind us. "People in the walls, people in the walls." The line stared back at me, unnatural. My partner raised his gun, his eyes tight. I did the same. and together we stepped closer, the air colder around. That wall as though the building itself exhaled through the cracks. My partner pulled at the plaster and it gave far too easily, a section of wall peeling back like rotten skin, and behind it came darkness thick and foul, and then eyes. 3 sets of them gleaming from the shadows, faces pressed together, cramped in the hollow space, mouths twisted, painted with strange black lines across their skin, watching us like animals, like predators. We both shouted orders, our voices clashing against the roar of water, and Adam's cries come out, hands where we can see them move. They hesitated, their painted faces still as statues, until finally they unfolded, crawling out into the light. 3 figures in filthy clothes, their limbs wiry, their bodies trembling, but their eyes never blinking, never breaking from ours. We cuffed them one by one, forcing them down into the hall as backup thundered up the stairs. The tenants outside gasping as the strangers were led away, their faces wet with water and something else, something like joy. One of them smiling as though capture was not defeat but victory. Adam collapsed in the corner, sobbing, hands covering his ears, whispering the same words over and over until they were no longer words but guttural sounds. People in the walls, his mind shredding in front of us, the landlord demanding to know what they had done, what this was, and we had no answers. Not then, not ever. Later we learned they were part of some cult out in the woods, people who lived off isolation, who fed on fear. They had targeted Adam because he was vulnerable, unstable, easy to bend. They had hidden in his walls, watching him, whispering at night, scratching and crawling until his mind cracked, flooding his world with water in some desperate attempt to flush them out. We should have felt relief catching them, ending it. But I could not stop seeing their eyes pressed in that hollow space, their smiles crooked and knowing, because as we dragged them away, one of them leaned close to Adam and whispered, not to us, not to the police, but to him and only him, and I swear I heard it, though I wish I hadn't. You are already one of us. And Adam stopped crying just like that. His body stilled, his mouth closed, his eyes went wide, but not in terror anymore. No, they went wide in recognition, like he remembered something, like he finally understood. We took him away too, for his safety, for evaluation, for something. But when I looked back, the apartment, still gushing water flooding down the stairs, the wall seemed to breathe around us, and I swear, I saw another line, another faint outline in the plaster farther down the hall, waiting to be opened. Since that night, I do not trust silence, because behind silence there can be scratching, and behind scratching there can be eyes. And sometimes in the stillness of my own home, I place my ear to the wall and listen just to make sure. But all I ever hear is breathing, my own, or maybe not my own. The night had been quiet. Too quiet, the kind of silence that makes you check your radio twice to be sure it is still working. The streets stretched empty, the air heavy, and I remember thinking how rare it was for a shift to feel this calm. But calm never lasts long in this job, and soon the first call came. A man reporting a strange woman moving through the neighborhood, door to door, knocking, whispering, yelling things he could barely make sense of, and then laughing right into his camera. Arrived at his house, and he met me outside, shaking not from the cold but from something colder. He showed me the footage, his doorbell camera catching her arrival. A woman, maybe mid-40s, hair wild, wiry strands tangled across her face, eyes sunken, too wide, her lips curling into a smile too sharp. She stood there staring into the lens for minutes, unmoving, and then she pressed the button and spoke, her voice a hiss, a rasp, saying, "Open the door. Open the door, I need blood." The homeowner spoke through. His phone asked her what she wanted, who she was, but she just repeated it over and over. I need blood, and each time she said it, she laughed, a dry, cracking laugh like glass breaking underfoot. When he threatened to call the police, she began pounding on the door, scratching at the frame, clawing at the bell itself, trying to rip it from the wall. Then suddenly she backed away, but never turned her back, still staring, still smiling, until she drifted to the house next door and vanished from the screen. That was when he called 911, truly terrified. And that was when we began searching the neighborhood, patrol cars circling houses, beams of light cutting through yards, the radio alive with updates. But she was slippery, no trace, only shadows, until another call came breaking and entering. We raced there, lights strobing, sirens ripping the silence, the caller whispering from upstairs, saying she was inside, saying she had entered with something in her hand, something sharp, and they were hiding in the bedroom, afraid to move, afraid to breathe. the husband keeping his wife pressed against the far wall as the footsteps echoed outside their door, and the cackling followed. When we arrived, the front door was unlocked, swinging open, as though she had been waiting for us, and the house lay in stillness, too perfect, too wrong, guns drawn. We entered, calling out, "Police, show yourself, come out with your hands where we can see them." Nothing answered, nothing but the thud of our boots against hardwood and the pounding of my own blood in my ears. Then from upstairs a scream, "Help, please help," and we rushed forward, our hearts tearing through ribs. The couple burst out as soon as we reached them, saying she was just there at their door, clawing, banging, whispering the same words, "Blood, blood, blood," and then silence again. They swore she never came down the stairs, never left, which meant she was still here, hiding somewhere, waiting. We moved room to room, each shadow stretching like claws across the floor until we reached the corner bedroom door, shut tight, the air pressing heavy against it. We pushed inside, and at first there was only blackness, and then sound, soft, low cackling, the kind of laugh that slides down your spine and leaves ice in its wake. I flicked on the light, and she was there, sitting on the bed, smiling at me before my brain even registered her presence. She was already staring, her body hunched, hair draped across her face, knife in one hand, blade wet, glistening sheets beneath her soaked dark and red, but not with anyone else's blood. No, it was her own. Her wrist sliced open, dripping across her lap onto something small, something pale. It was a doll, a little girl's doll, its dress drenched in, her blood cradled between her legs like a child, and her voice cracked as she spoke. "I need blood, I need blood." Her laughter chasing each word as though it were the punchline of some private joke. We shouted, dropped commands, ordered her to put the knife down, to let go, to move away from the bed, but she only leaned forward, her eyes locked on mine, her smile widening. I asked her, Who do you mean? Who needs blood?" But she just repeated it, softer this time, almost tender. "She needs blood. She needs blood." My partner motioned to me to hold fire to keep her talking, but her body twitched, her grip on the knife tightened. Her eyes flickered wild, and in one heartbeat she lunged, her feet kicking off the soaked sheets, knife arcing through the air straight toward me. My reflex fired faster than thought. I squeezed twice, the sound deafening in that tight space. The bullets caught her arm, spinning the knife away. She screamed, not like laughter now, but like an animal. Guttural, broken, collapsing, against the bed, clutching her wound. My partner rushed forward, cuffing her, dragging her off, the blood smearing across the floor as she writhed, still whispering, still laughing, even in agony. We called medics, they hauled her away, her body trembling, her lips moving in silent words, her eyes never leaving mine until she vanished down the hall. She survived barely. And in court later, they said insanity. They said she would never see a prison cell, only padded walls and endless treatments. And so, they locked her away in the asylum. That should have been the end, case closed, another nightmare filed away. But weeks later I came home after a shift, the sky barely blue at the edges, my house quiet, my mailbox stuffed, and inside it I found a single envelope, no return address, no markings except my name scrawled in jagged letters. I opened it, hands shaking, and inside was only a scrap of paper smeared faintly with brown, and across it, 3 words written in a hand I knew too well. "I found you." Dropped it. My breath catching the silence of my house, pressing heavy around me, every shadow alive, every wall breathing. And even now, when I close my eyes, I hear her voice whispering from the dark, from the corners of my room, from the places just behind the walls, saying it again and again, "I need blood, I need blood," and each time I hear it, the whisper comes closer.